Okay, so I'm doing a refined question list for pedagogical bridging. Foundational translation questions. On translating Jungian attitude into ops directionality, most people learn Jung first. When a Jungian trained therapist or analyst encounters the objective personality system notion of double observers, double deciders, observers / decider vectors, what is exactly conceptually happening? Walk through a concrete example. Take an extroverted intuitive type from Jung and show exactly how that person's consciousness appears when you translate it into OPS directional language. What does each system reveal that the other obscures? This is just an IP verification thing. Observer is the same thing as when Jung talks about a perception function, and decider is the same thing as when Jung talks about a judgment function. It's exactly the same thing ported over. They just changed the terms from observer from perception and decider from judgment. It could be the same if you say, when you say double observer, that means there are two observer functions in the middle, so the person is a decider. And when you say double decider, that means there are two decider functions in the middle. That means a person is an observer. And what it means is that it's trained on that function combinatorics based off the Grant function stack that labels the first function and the fourth function as being a part of the same heartline axis. So say it's a perception function, then it's a observer. Say it's a judgment function, then it's a decider. That's what it would be recognized as the first function. Say this was an extroverted intuitive type from Jung, and show exactly how that person's consciousness appears when you translate into OPS directional language. The directional language is when we talk about ordonance and we say, hey, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4 in terms of differentiation, most differentiated to least differentiated. The directionality is what I'm assuming you mean when you say directional language, and that is a complement based on common notation in terms of the actual animal functions and writing out the full function stack in terms of what a type is. So a type, when you in original Jungian inside of an original Jungian context, there are only two types with extroverted intuition, an ENTP and an ENFP, at the top as the most differentiated. There's 8 functions that have extroverted intuition inside their stacks, and that is the ISTJ, the ISFJ, the INTP, and the ENFJ. So the ops directional language is talking about the function level for the animal function. So even though we spoke about the type, the extroverted intuitive type, then we're saying, okay, so what functions does this type have and how is it constituted? For an extroverted intuitive type, like I said, there are only two functions that would exist, two types that would exist that have this function as the most differentiated, the ENTP and the ENFP. And when you look at their 4 functions. The ENTP has extroverted intuition, introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, and introverted sensation. And the ENFP has extroverted intuition, introverted feeling, extroverted thinking, and introverted sensation. What's different here is that with the addition of the animal functions, the type coded language is not just that specific function, like which function is being used. In the objective personality system, it's which function as a reflection of which animal function they use. So let's give an example. We're using an ESFJ that has feminine FE, masculine SI, feminine NE, masculine TI. And the first one, we're going to go with blast, play, sleep, consume. That means that it would be FMSF, if that makes sense. So you would have a tripartite or a four-part coded sequence, one for the directionality in terms of which function, which psychological function is the first in the sequence, and then you would have the flavors of that function, meaning is it an FM function based on the directionality? Is it double masculine? Is it double feminine? Is it FM? Is it FM? Is it MF? For the example that I gave, we're talking about FE, SI, masculine, feminine, blast, play, sleep, consume. So that's FE, SI, FE / SI, masculine, feminine. So masculine, feminine, MF, MF, FESI, MFFESI, blast, play, sleep, consume. On translating Jungian attitude into OPS directionality, you get to see the energy activation from whence the function's flow is moving when you get to see directionality placed in the context of the sexual modality. Specifically when writing out common notation to actually say, okay, this is the full animal function being written out. For the example that we have for blast, play, sleep, consume, that's FMSF blast, that's double feminine, FF, NF play, that's double masculine, ST sleep, and that's FMNT consume, blast, play, sleep, consume. And that would be DEFMSF blast, DEFFNF play, OIMMST sleep, and F and OE FMNT consume. So what occurs here, what does each system reveal that the other obscures? It obscures two foundational facts, and that is that in the objective personality system, they start from a different foundational premise, and that is that there are not 8 psychological functions. There are in fact 16 differentiated psychological functions. And with the addition of the animal functions, they act as a higher order combinatoric. Or if that doesn't make sense, it's a second layer over top of the grant function stack where we're reifying, we're hypostatizing the functions in a grant function stack from most to least differentiated, and then we're linking them with the energetic binder. The animal function is an energetic binder that links the attitudes from two distinct observer and a decider together, if that makes sense. So that person's consciousness appears when it's translated into OPS directional language, because you get a better resolution, you get a higher level of resolution on the function itself. If we're talking about an extroverted intuitive type from Jung, that in terms of MBTI is a ENFP or an ENTP, and we know the function type in terms of the grant function stack with regards to Jung's conception and the theoretical basis. What OPS does is it takes that intellectual property and it goes one step forward, and it's saying, okay, when we're talking about a specific type, we're talking about the functions that make up that type. So we cannot talk about the type in isolation without talking about the functions that make it up. In this context, the functions that make it up is not extroverted intuition. It is an animal function as a reflection. If it was just the function itself, then it would be, in the example I gave, it would be feminine extroverted intuition. In the example that I gave for MF, FESI, blast, play, sleep, consume, MF, FESI, blast, play, sleep, consume, then the NE, the extroverted intuition, would be feminine. So we would be talking about feminine extroverted intuition. And then we would go a layer deeper into say, so what does that mean about the animal functions? What does that mean when someone says, what is their first animal function? Their first animal function would be DEFMSF blast. DEFMSF blast. Because DE indicates that it's DE, the DE function, is the first in the directionality between the SF. SF just means that we're using two distinct functions, a sensory function and a feeling function. In this case, because it's FESI, it's going to be an extroverted decider and an introverted observer. So when we map out the different animal functions and we say, okay, this is a decider, this is an observer, the point is that it's used as shorthand to describe, okay, for this specific type of Kiersey notation, SFNT, NFNT, SFNT, NFST, whenever we're going through that list of T, that list of S, that list of N, that list of S, it's only four. It's the T's. For the T's, it would be ST or NT. For the F's, it would be SF or NF. For the S's, it would be SF or ST. For the N's, it would be NF or NT. In order to understand the directionality is for understanding which function hits first in terms of the modality arrangement, so that you can actually get a sense of, okay, this is FM SF blast. This is DE FM SF blast. And that is what the OPS system reveals that other systems obscure. It unlocks an extra level of differentiation at the level of, from the level of changing and transforming it from the OP intellectual property by bridging, taking a splitter's perspective and going from 8 functions to 16 functions. They're able to say, no, that's not actually extroverted intuition anymore. That doesn't exist actually. What exists is the feminine modality of that function as it's portrayed within a psychological type. We cannot type people without that modality. So it implies the existence of a characterization that includes a modality as an extra posit within the construction of a type. And then you get to go into the contextual details where you get to say, okay, well, what happens if there are different modalities within in the same grant function stack? Then you can see those 4 variations, MF, FM, FF, MM, inside of that same stack, because the combinatorics bloom when you introduce psychological functions over top of animal functions. So what does each system reveal that the other obscures? It reveals the contextual difference between how granular we can get with the objective personality animals. It's not just us talking about blast. It's not just us talking about play. It's not just us talking about sleep. It's not just us talking about consume. It's a specific flavor of blast. It's SF blast. That means it's using FE and SI in blast. And that means FMSF, that means the FE is feminine and the SI is masculine. For NF, it is double feminine, NF, so that means the FE is feminine and the NE is feminine. For double masculine, ST, it's SI is masculine and TI is masculine. And then for FMNT, it is feminine NE and masculine TI. So that's what it means on translating the Jungian attitude into OPS directionality. It gives us a more granular way to point and say, hey, these are the new functions that we're talking about, not the 16 functions in objective personality. That's just the splitter's perspective. No, we're actually pointing to the animal function and saying this is what differentiates this animal function from another animal function. This is the flavor of that animal function. That's what the system reveals that the other obscures.